Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP and his wife met in their mid-20s and married for 8 years. On a Caribbean vacation with friends, he discovered his wife cheating with his best friend. After confronting them, he initiated divorce proceedings. AP's marriage also ended, and karma later caught up with him. Now let's get into the story. My wife and I both met when we were in our mid-20s at a club. I was there with my best friend, let's call him David, and I saw her from across the room. She was by far the best-looking woman in the building, and I wanted to shoot my shot with her. There were so many other men trying to get with her, but somehow I was the one she chose to be with. Every day since then she had chosen to be with me, and I was very grateful for that up until recently. We had been married for 8 years, and everything was going well. We put off having children so we could focus on our careers, and we were finally in a place where we could try. Before we started trying to have our first kid, my wife and I wanted to have one last vacation on our own to sort of send off our life before kids. We invited David and his wife, let's call her Kelly, along with us. All 4 of us were looking forward to the trip for a while. We were going to the Caribbean and really looking forward to the wonderful views and all the activities we had planned. Leading up to the trip, my wife was kind of nervous about it. I didn't fully understand why she had flown on planes countless times before. I tried to comfort her as much as I could and tell her that the trip was going to be fine, but it didn't really seem to work much. The time came for all 4 of us to leave, and we got there without a hitch and settled into our hotel rooms. We actually had a joining room which we all got a cake out of first. We made sure to lock our ends so our friends didn't walk into our room uninvited. Part of me thought that this trip was going to be almost like a second honeymoon for my wife and me. I was expecting it to be a little more passionate and intimate than it turned out to be. She wasn't really too eager about having intimate with me the first couple of nights we were there. She told me that she was jet-lagged and just not feeling like herself, so I didn't pressure her into anything. All of us had managed to fully take the time off work for the vacation, with the exception of one meeting that I had during the middle of it. It was something that I could hop on a Zoom call for a couple of hours and be done with. On the day of my meeting, we spent the morning at the breakfast buffet that I left to have my meeting. In the middle of it, I could hear shuffling around in the room next door. I assumed someone just went in to grab something, but I didn't think too much about it. When it was over, I went to the beach to meet up with everyone. Kelly wasn't there when I arrived. It was just my wife and David. They were laughing about something, and I asked him what was so funny, but they just told me that it was nothing. They mentioned that Kelly went up to the room to get some rest because she had a headache. David was my best friend, and I trusted my wife, so I never suspected anything was a mess. They were friendlier than they normally were with each other while we were on the beach, but I just thought they might have had a few too many drinks already. All of us went to dinner later that day, and I thought I noticed David touching my wife. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. It looked like he patted her on the butt while they were walking by each other. I have been drinking, so part of me kind of assumed that I might have mistaken something that happened. I didn't make a big deal out of it. We went through the rest of dinner, and I was a little bit on edge about what I saw, so I wasn't as jovial as I normally was. My wife and David kept looking at each other and smiling. It felt silly, but I was starting to worry that my wife and David were up to something. We got back to our hotel room, and I asked my wife about it when we were alone. I was drunk by that point, and my wife was as well. She told me nothing was happening. I explained the butt path that I thought I saw, and she told me that it didn't happen. I saw what I did, but I didn't want to believe it. I convinced my wife that I was right with David, myself that I was drunk and paranoid, and it would be best if I just went to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night and my wife wasn't there. I looked around for her, and I didn't see her anywhere. I got up and started looking for her, and saw that the door to the adjoining room was open just a crack. I knew for a fact we kept it locked, so had I been deliberately opened by my wife. I peeked inside David and Kelly's room and saw that Kelly was asleep in the bed and David was missing. The memories of the night before had come back to me, and I started to put the pieces together, and I imagined that David and my wife were off somewhere together. Then I noticed the light to the large walk-in closet was on. I listened carefully for a moment, and I could hear very soft, stifled moans alongside some quiet shuffling coming from inside of the closet. I didn't want to open the door because I already had a pretty good sense of what I was going to see, but I knew that I needed to. I tipped over as quietly as I could and stood in front of the door for a second before yanking it open. I saw exactly what I had anticipated, but that didn't make it hurt any less. My wife and David were in the middle of having intimate with each other. When I opened the door and my wife saw me, she screamed. Kelly jolted awake in bed and yelled at me about being in her room, but then she realized what was really happening. Kelly stormed over to the closet and immediately started screaming at David about what he was doing. She mentioned how she was right not to have wanted to come on the trip with my wife and told him that they were done. I was really confused about what she was saying because they didn't seem hesitant about joining us on the trip at all. I asked for clarification, and Kelly just looked at David and my wife, waiting for them to elaborate. My wife finally spoke up, and she confessed to me that she and David had slept together once before back home. David told Kelly about it because he felt bad, and Kelly was able to forgive him as long as it didn't happen again. They both said that it was a mistake and it just happened and they regretted it. David and Kelly both promised not to tell me about what happened because they didn't know how I was going to react. So Kelly didn't want to go on vacation with the woman that slept with her husband. I could completely understand that. What I couldn't understand was why everybody thought it was okay to leave me in the dark about it. I was the only one who didn't know, and I felt foolish for trusting David and my wife. I thought they made me look like an idiot. I went back to my room and my wife tried to explain it to me, telling me that it really meant nothing and that it was just intimate. I didn't understand how that was justifying anything she said. Sleeping with somebody with no emotional connection didn't make it any better. She still cheated on me, and that was what I cared about. David came into the room and tried to explain his side of everything to me, and I ended up just punching him in the face. I do regret that because it wasn't exactly the most mature way to handle the situation, but I was in the heat of the moment and it felt right at the time. I ended up leaving the vacation the following morning and leaving everybody else behind. I went home to begin the divorce proceedings before my wife returned. I didn't want anything to do with her, and I didn't want anything to do with David or Kelly. Kelly came back shortly after I did, and she stopped by my house to apologize for keeping the secret. Apparently, my wife had promised her that she was going to tell me, and Kelly thought that she did. Otherwise, she wouldn't have ever kept silent about it. I believed what she said. She had no reason to come over and lie to my face about it. My wife and David didn't come back home for an additional 3 days. I was already upset about the cheating, but the fact that they stayed behind on the vacation for an additional 3 days after everything happened was infuriating. I can only imagine the types of things they were doing while there for 3 days alone. I talked to Kelly after they came home and asked her what she was going to do. She told me that she had forgiven him once for cheating on her and wasn't able to do it again. She planned on leaving him and moving out of their house. I ended up divorcing my wife, and Kelly divorced David. My wife and David tried to date each other for a while after everything happened, and from what I understand, it ended very badly. David cheated on my wife with a woman for his work and ruined their relationship. I just felt like that was karma coming back to get her in the end, though. I am now happy away from both of them. I do check in with Kelly from time to time, but I try to stay away from her because it just reminds me of the times I had with David and my wife. But I'm now dating a wonderful girl, and I realize that I'm going to have a lot of issues in my future relationships, but I'm trying to let myself be vulnerable and open again. Today's second story. In this story, after 4 years together, OP discovered his girlfriend had been cheating with a male model named Connor, whom she met through her photography work. Initially unaware of her past infidelity, he learned she lied about her previous relationship and current affair. Confronting Connor and her ex, he left, causing her personal and professional life to unravel. Now let's get into the story. My girlfriend and I were together for 4 years before we broke up. We shared a mutual friend, and I first saw her when a picture of the two of them was posted online. I thought my girlfriend looked amazing, and I slid into her DMs. We started talking and we hit it off. She was a portrait photographer, so a lot of the photos on her Instagram were of her work. I didn't see any signs of her being in a relationship when I did my cursory glance at her page. She and I had been dating for 6 months when she came clean to me about her past. She told me that when we started talking, she was in a relationship. I had absolutely no idea about it. If I had known, I wouldn't have even messaged her to begin with. I was very upset with the news, but she managed to calm me down and explain herself. She described the relationship as being extremely tumultuous. She and her boyfriend were volatile with each other, and it was a toxic situation. She told me that he had been guilty of cheating several times in the past. What she said didn't make it okay that she cheated on him with me, but I could understand where she was coming from. The way she framed it made it seem like she was stuck in a really bad relationship. I assumed that when she met me, she had a reason to get out, so she did. We had a long discussion about everything, and she swore to me that she would never do anything like that again. She told me that it was eating her alive, having to lie to somebody as long as she was. The guilt was overwhelming to her, and it was the worst feeling she'd ever had. She cried and I comforted her. Looking back, I should have ended things right then. She pretty much confessed to doing the worst possible things she could have done in a relationship, and I comforted her for it. I feel like a fool even thinking about that now. Years passed, and our relationship was going very well. By that point, I'd completely fallen head over heels in love with her. We were living together, and we had 2 dogs. I thought that I'd finally found the perfect woman for me. Both of us were successful in our work. I worked in a pharmaceutical testing lab, and I climbed very high on the ladder there. I was managing several teams of people, and I was accomplishing a lot of my goals with the job. On top of that, my girlfriend was getting popular on social media for her work. Her portraits were phenomenal, and she was making a name for herself. One thing she did to try and get her name out there was free photography sessions for select people. She would do headshots and things like that for up-and-coming models or influencers just to get her name out there. She didn't do a lot of those, but she did them a couple of times a year. That was how she met her affair partner, who we'll call Connor. Connor was the stereotypical male model. He was tall with dark hair and blue eyes with a lot of muscles. He looks like a walking perfume ad. I saw him when she was looking through his Instagram account, trying to decide who to work with through the free service she offered. He had a growing following online, specifically through his TikTok account, where he posted a lot of thirst traps. For what she was looking for, he was a perfect fit for her. Even though Connor was very good-looking, I was secure about my relationship. I trusted my girlfriend, and after the talk we had about how she cheated, and it made her feel as bad as it did, I never thought she would do it again. Plus, she had worked with countless models before, so I didn't see why Connor would be any different. They did their initial photo shoots, and my girlfriend told me all about it. When she talked to me, she was raving about how skilled he was and how easy everything went. They built up a friendly rapport, and my girlfriend told me that she was excited about working with him again. I was a little bit confused about that, because the whole point of the service she offered was to give them a free opportunity to plug her essentially. But she told me that Connor had a bunch of ideas for photo shoots that he wanted for his accounts, and he wanted to work with her on them. I had no issue with it. I thought it was great that something she did was immediately going to benefit her and get her more work. Over the next several weeks, I noticed my girlfriend's demeanor changing. She was withdrawing from me, and we stopped being intimate with each other, and she was spending more and more time out of the house. I asked her why she was absent more often than normal, and she told me that she was busy with clients. I only noticed that was a lie when she told me one day that she was doing a photo shoot with a friend of hers, and later that day Connor posted a picture of the two of them together. They were at lunch, and I knew it wasn't an old photo, because it was the outfit my girlfriend left in. I realized that she lied to me about going to see Connor, and I started getting suspicious. The insecurity that I hadn't felt before started to creep up. I didn't meet most of her clients, so Connor and I had never crossed paths. She didn't post me on her Instagram, just like she hadn't posted about her ex-boyfriend. I started to think that there could be a good chance that Connor didn't know she was in a relationship and something similar was happening. I started digging around on Connor's Instagram page to try to find any more clues about the two of them. I happened to notice while I was looking that the picture Connor had posted of him with my girlfriend was deleted. That immediately clocked me as weird. I didn't understand why he would delete the photo unless maybe my girlfriend told him to. My girlfriend edited all of her photos on her computer and usually posted them from there. So I thought there might be a chance that her Instagram was already logged in. Luckily for me, I was right. I started looking through her messages to figure out what was happening. I immediately found evidence that they were having an affair. They were in the early stages of the relationship, still getting to know each other mostly. Through everything I saw, I never saw one mention that my girlfriend wasn't single. It made sense that Connor might not know about me. I took some screenshots of those conversations, and I emailed them to myself. I didn't know what to do exactly. So much of my life was entangled with hers, and it was going to be messy breaking up, but I didn't have much of a choice. The more I started thinking about it, the more I started thinking about her ex-boyfriend. It was clear to me then that my girlfriend was a liar, so I wondered if she had been lying about him too. I did some digging and found out who he was. I sent him a message on Instagram that same day and asked him if we could talk about her. He replied within a couple of hours and told me that he would be willing to. We set a time to have a video call later that evening. My girlfriend was still out with Connor, presumably sleeping with him. I called her ex and we started talking. The story he gave me was completely different from what my girlfriend said. It was very similar to mine. Even, they were both happy together until someone new showed interest in her, and she decided she wanted out. He made it seem like it was all very sudden, and there weren't any signs leading up to it. One day they were talking about their futures, and the next she was completely packed up and out of his house. She didn't even break up with him properly. She took all of her things and left, and he had to harass her to get an answer for what happened. He advised me to get away from her as soon as I could. My girlfriend got home late that night and I lied to her and said that I had a lot of work I had to catch up on and wouldn't be going to bed with her. While she was asleep, I decided that I was going to message Connor about everything. I had a strong suspicion that he had no idea what she had done to two different people, and I thought he might like to know. I messaged him on Instagram with my story, alongside screenshots that my girlfriend's ex said to me. I told him that if he wanted to talk about it more, just let me know and I'd be happy to talk to him. The following morning, I had a message from him where he told me that he was shocked by what I said and wasn't sure if he should believe it. I tried to send him proof that I wasn't in a relationship with my girlfriend, and that seemed to persuade him. We had a brief conversation, and he confirmed everything that I thought. My girlfriend never told him that she was in a relationship when they started talking. He even asked her if she was single the first day they met, and she told him yes. He was angry, and he felt like he had been lied to, but he felt guilty for ending my relationship. I tried to make sure he didn't feel that way because it wasn't his fault. My girlfriend left that day to meet with a client, or at least that's what she said. While she was gone, I packed up as much of my stuff as I could, and I went to stay in a hotel room. I figured I would give her a taste of her own medicine. Later that day, my girlfriend called me countless times trying to see where I was. She was hurt and confused that I left, especially since I took the dogs with me. I just didn't tell her where I was. I figured going no contact with no explanation would be hurtful and leave her with a lot of unresolved issues. I was thinking long-term rather than short-term with that one. Connor deleted a lot of the photos that he had posted that my girlfriend had taken. He even posted on his Instagram story some of the screenshots with my name blurred out. He commented on how you can't just trust anyone these days. It would only take a little bit of detective work to figure out who it was talking about. From the look of it, my girlfriend lost quite a bit of followers after that happened. Connor broke things off with her entirely, and she was single. I knew that the house that we were living in together wasn't one that she could afford to keep up with on her own, so she was forced to move. In the end, it seems like she got a nice taste of her own medicine, and because of her actions, she lost a lot of potential business with other people. Knowing now that Connor has brand deals with a couple of big-name designers, I'm sure she is kicking herself for that. He could have taken her name to a whole new height.